Welcome, everybody. This is Crossover Sports Talk and Events. I'm your host and founder, Fazil Irshad. Welcome back again. Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys had a great weekend and a great Father's Day. It was such a lots has gone on since the last time I've been on here. It's been quite about, I'd say, about several days or so. Just getting together with the family. We'll be having more content. Like I said, we'll be having more guests on as well, but I just wanted to get into some things. I wanted to recap what happened in the NBA Finals, these last two games in Game 4 and Game 5. My God, what a swing of momentum, I would say. In the past two games, as you saw, like the Indiana Pacers had, like, I think people were saying, like, the complete momentum when they were up 2-1, and the ruckus crowd that was going after Game 3, and it was like people were like heading like Indiana is going to take over. Are they going to win the NBA Finals? Or are they going to have complete momentum? And then, as we were speaking, we go into Game 4, and Indiana's winning throughout the whole game. And we all keep thinking like, oh my God, like they're up 10, they're up 12, and then okay, Oklahoma City cuts it, within like to 6 or 4 again, and then they go back up 10 again. They go on a big run, and then people are like, it's just like it's not OKC's day, or Indiana just keeps striking back, and they're feeding off the crowd. And little did we know, Oklahoma City showed that championship culture that they have, that championship camaraderie with their team that they've shown this entire postseason. It's kind of giving that similarity from what they had to that Denver Nuggets series back in the semifinals, when they went up against Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, and MGP, and the Nuggets. And they won in 7. It was like 1-1 after 2, and then, Game 1, they off a game winner, and Game 2, they win in a convincing fashion. Then they lose Game 3, quite a bit, like, say, like a tight battle, and then they have a clutch Game 4, especially by Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA, the league's MVP. Him finishing with 35 points on 12 of 24 shooting. The Thunder ended up winning 111-104 in Game 4 when they tied the series. Jalen Williams is co-star, leading with 27, and then Chet with the 14-15 game. And then Alex Caruso is very huge, especially that Swiss Army knife that they call him that he is on defense and offense, with 20 points and 7 of 9 shooting. So that was quite the 4 key players for the Thunder winning in Game 4. And, the key moment was when Shea Gilgeous-Alexander in the fourth quarter, when they were down by, like, I'd say like 5 points with like about 3 minutes left, he started to take over. He had about 15 points in the final 4.5 minutes. With 35 points, he finished, like I mentioned, and getting to the line, forcing fouls, making some moves out there in the low post in that mid-range area, and hitting a big 3 with the shot clock running down. He just took over, and this was his moment, to show like, hey, Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league. People are saying like, hey, I'm there too. I'm the league's MVP, and I took his team out, despite like what was going on with Denver. But they showed that championship flavor and what championships are really about, what championship teams are made of. And then Jalen Williams and Caruso, like what I mentioned before, like they were in Chet Holmgren, they were such key vital pieces for the Thunder winning in Game 4 and stealing back home court after that. And then, Pacers led most of the game. Like I mentioned, they were with that fourth quarter that came in. They had a 10-point lead, and then they just shot about like 27% from the field in the fourth quarter. Like Thunder's defense, like I mentioned, that championship defense that they have, like they can throw anybody at you. They really just took over and just suffocated the Pacers, being like, hey, we're taking this and we're going to tie this series up. And that's was, the brilliance of the Thunder, especially a great coaching job by Mark Daigneault. Like people were saying, like, Rick Carlisle and the Pacers would have the edge in the coaching of this podcast. I mean, of this series, I would say. My apologies. DeMonte, yes. They would say they would have the coaching edge because of the experience by Rick Carlisle, and Mark Daigneault, his first finals, but him, leading this team, Sam Presti building this team, but Carlisle did it with the Mavericks when he defeated the Heat a long time ago, back in 2011 NBA Finals when Dirk got his first ring, and his only ring, and winning in 6 games over the big three: Heat, LeBron, Bosh, and Wade. But their defense, that showed them the clutchness of that game, and that's why they were able to tie the series. And once that momentum happened, it carried over to Game 5. We go all the way back to Oklahoma City. Series is tied 2-2, and just as we were thinking, is Indiana going to carry it back? Are they going to steal another game in Oklahoma City to take a 3-2 lead, head back to Indiana for Game 6 and close out there? But that did not happen. The Thunder came in at home and took care of business to take a 3-2 lead, and they just showed why, hey, we're destined for a championship, and now they're 1 win away from the NBA title, leading 3-2 now. They won 120-109 with, the co-star of the Thunder, of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, finished with 40 points. 40 points for him in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. And he was a key cog of them. He was just on it all night. He was hitting shots from everywhere. And I'd say he'd be the main reason why they'd won that game, along going with Shai, SGA with 31 points, 31 and 40 for the 2 stars. Chet finished with 9 and 11, 9 points and 11 rebounds. Shai with 31 and 10. And then Aaron Wiggins and Cason Wallace with 14 and 11 points off the bench with the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that was key. Them getting their home crowd back, regaining momentum, regaining the home court advantage for the Thunder, leading the way. He was 9 of 12 from free throws for Jalen Williams, 14 for 25 shooting. And Shai was also great defensively. Him showing his length, and then Jalen Williams as well, Alex Caruso, Chet Holmgren, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, and the rest of the stars, on the Oklahoma City Thunder. The main reason, people were thinking about Indiana had, and what Oklahoma City usually does to teams, how they suffocate teams. They force turnovers, and they can throw anybody at you, especially with the way they threw and they forced about 30 turnovers in Game 1, and then they forced about 23 turnovers, and they scored 32 off of them in Game 5. And the Pacers didn't really shoot good from three-pointer, from threes in Game 5. But Pascal Siakam did lead the way with 28 points, and TJ McConnell, who was actually keeping them in the game, with 18 points off the bench, and he had a big third quarter. When Oklahoma City, we thought we were going to go up above 20 points. He led them back into the game and gave them possibly a chance to win it, which they were only down at 1.6 points in the fourth quarter. And we're like, oh, are we going to see another Indiana comeback? Is this deja vu? And then, the main reason I'd like to get into it was Tyrese Halliburton is the main reason for this. He also hobbled with an injury, a calf strain that was reported. He was 0 for 6. He didn't make a shot in Game 5 with only 4 points. It was really rough for him. Looked like the leg was bothering him, and people are wondering what's his status for Game 6 Thursday night in Indiana. The home crowd is going to be there, and he says no. He did mention that it's the NBA Finals, it's playoffs. I'm going to play. I'm going to play through this. We're on the verge of a championship. I'm going to play. So kudos to him, fighting through it. He's such a great player and such a great leader on that team, that Indiana Pacers team, leading them all the way here. It's going to be a very, very, very interesting game for Thursday. How that outlook, what is Rick Carlisle going to do? How is he going to manage Tyrese Halliburton in a do-or-die game? They're facing elimination. They lose on Thursday, season's over, and the Thunder are the champs for the first time in a long time. This is for their first championship for Indiana. So it's going to be possibly, I know it's going to be a crazy atmosphere out there in Indiana. So we shall see what goes on. I hope, I hope he's okay, and he battles through it. And, NBA would, it's pretty crazy. No people were saying like this is gonna be like one of those finals where like, oh, it's small markets and not everybody's gonna want to watch, but it was just like it's real basketball. Like this is really some pure basketball that's going on, and it's a joy to watch, for NBA fans like us and NBA, writers and reporters or whatnot. But it's good to see, these young, somewhat experienced teams, make that leap, as we're not used to seeing like the big market teams like we're accustomed to seeing be in the NBA finals. So it's good to see these two, upstart new teams, get into the finals and, showcase their teams that, hey, we're here too, and we can end up winning NBA championship as well. We're just as good. And that is true. They are very well built. Sam Presti and Mark Daigneault, they've built such a great team in Indiana. Rick Carlisle and the Pacers have, they're coached well. Both teams are coached well. They're built very well. They're just destined to win. And I also wanted to get into more, stats about this. Usually the winners of Game 5 in the NBA Finals have about a 74% historical chance to clinch the title. And with OKC leading 3-2 and being the favorites, it should be, interesting. I did have Oklahoma City winning in 6 games before the finals began. That was my prediction. But things can change, right? Like they can get interesting. They can get all hectic. You never know what to expect in any league, in the NFL or the NBA. These, the underdogs or whatever times can happen. The Pacers can come out, like in the floodgates, and they can just win it, or can be a clutch game, and then the Thunder can take it and win their first title since they were back the Seattle Supersonics back in the 70s. So this should be cool. One thing I also did want to mention is Oklahoma City strengths. Like they do have those prolonged stories from SGA and Williams and the suffocating defense and their bench contributions, and then Indy's adjustments that I think will be needed in this game. They got to obviously check up on Halliburton. If he's not 100%, what are they going to do? TJ McConnell's got to step up. They got to stop turning the ball over. And I think, Halliburton, if he can go, use him in those key cog moments where they're going to need him. And I think these few days to rest, let's see how his cap is holding up, facing elimination and keeping a more, I think, a balanced attack with Siakam and Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, and Aaron Nesmith. These guys are going to have to step it up, I think, a little bit more for the Pacers to take game 6 at home and force a game 7 back in Oklahoma City. So this should be a very good one to watch. I can't wait. This is a must win for them because if they don't, the season's over, and the off season will begin soon. There is another topic that I'm about to get into. It's going to be quite hefty. I think, talking about, a lot of people have been asking me to talk about this one would be my Mount Rushmore, my NBA Mount Rushmore. So I will get into that. But before that, I would like to mention a few sponsors. You can reach out to Ibnaez Wahid, a broker associate realtor from Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Elite Real Estate. You can reach him out for any homes that you'd like to purchase at 510-329-3927. And then that's his direct line. And his other line would be 916-667-3465. And you can also email him at IBOhomes@gmail.com. He serves the Bay Area and Greater Sacramento and Elk Grove as well. Right in the ticker below, you can see his email is there as well. You can reach out to him, regarding your home needs. And I also would like to mention another sponsor for LawPro Legal Services Evictions, Mohammed Shiraan. He can help with evictions, disputes, 3-day and 30-day notices, residential, commercial, and mobile park homes. You can reach him out for any needs regarding that for 916-709-5518. And his email is mshiraan at yahoo.com, right there in the ticker below that you can see. So please reach out to him for any of your LawPro legal services needs. Please reach out to them. They will help you out with anything. So they are your most trusted, I would say, real estate and legal information that you guys need to help, and then they can help you moving forward. I'll also be mentioning more sponsors as we go on in the show. So I did want to get into my Mount Rushmore. So now we will get into my Mount Rushmore. I will give you guys my explanation. So this was a very difficult topic. This can go either way. I think, by eras it can go, or it can change really much by how you view players and what their impact was on the games. This was really hard for me. I think it'll change. It may change by the time maybe some players are finished with their careers. But for me, as of right now, who I do have on my Mount Rushmores, I'll mention. I do have, obviously, in my opinion, Michael Jordan, MJ, his aura, his influence, his the way he influenced basketball worldwide back in the 90s, and when he was drafted in 84, named the GOAT, 6 championships, 6 finals MVPs, 5-time league MVP, so many all NBA teams and defensive teams. He was not only great just offensively, but he was also a menace on defense. You know, um, he did lead those Bulls teams to 2 3-peats and 6 titles. With Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and Phil Jackson and Steve Kerr. As he's coaching the Warriors today, he was on that team. Luke Longley, Ron Harper, and Bill Cartwright, and Tony Kukoc, as you've seen, in the Last Dance documentaries about the Chicago Bulls and how they came formidable to be one of the best dynasties in basketball, possibly the best, or whichever teams you guys all have, So I do have MJ there. I'm sure everybody has him on their Mount Rushmore, but I do have him. And then I also do have the late, great Kobe Bryant. Not just being biased aside, he was my all-time favorite player. He's the reason I was like, when I was such a little kid getting into basketball, watching it with his 5 NBA titles, 3 with Shaq, 3-peating with Shaq, and getting 2 with Gasol. Remembering those titles, his league MVPs, his all NBA teams, he's just being a menace on defense. When he had wearing number 8, 24, his influence, his aura, like the leadership he had with Phil Jackson, with the triangle offense he ran with Fisher, Gasol, and Kobe. Those formidable teams he put together with, Jordan Farmer, Sasha Vujacic, Lamar Odom. Ron Artest came in to win in 2010 with him in Game 7 of the NBA Finals against the Celtics, him beating the Magic. They also did defeat the Pacers in their first title when he was with Shaq, and AI. So he's also there on my Mount Rushmore, not just, his shooting ability. He played in 2 eras as well, like 2 different eras, saying like back in the early 2000s, late 2000s to the middle of the 2010s, until the torch was getting passed over, to like the likes of Curry and LeBron. Then who else I also have on my Mount Rushmore would be, I cannot skip this guy. He's there, he's still playing, his longevity over 20 years. It's LeBron James. He's in my opinion, the greatest finisher getting to the basketball time. He's averaging, he's 6'8", 260. He's a freight train coming right at you. He just improved his jump shot as he went. He was nicknamed the chosen one before he was drafted. There was already a lot of pressure on him before coming into the league, and he exceeded all expectations. His all-time leader in points, all-time postseason, in the finals records, reaching 10 straight finals, although he was 4-6 in them, but he did lead 3 different teams with titles. The Miami Heat winning back-to-back over there, and then getting the Cleveland Cavaliers, their first title, coming back from a 3-1 deficit against the Golden State Warriors. When the 73-9 Warriors, the unanimous MVP, that was Curry at the time, that was one NBA Finals that was pretty crazy. I'd say people, I think, rated that the best since I would say the Heat and Spurs one back when Ray Allen shot that one, and then the Celtics and Lakers the year before that. So I think that was been rated one of the highest of all time. So that one, Curry hitting the big shot, LeBron getting the triple double. Think him, his longevity with the Cavs, the Lakers now, and also with the Miami Heat, and him coming back to the Cavs, and what was him bringing back the title that was something people won't forget. We won't forget. LeBron's longevity, his greatness, his leadership. We can't forget his greatness, like in points, rebounds, assists. And he's not a first scoring type of forward. He is a pass first, small forward. You know, a young kid from Ohio, from Akron. Just he made it happen. So now, and then that gives me to my fourth one. This can fluctuate. I don't have it completely set, but this player can come into my Mount Rushmore. Just it's just on the pace of influence and how the way he's changed the game today with the 3-pointers that he's playing. You guys all know what I'm talking about. It's Stephen Curry. With his 4 rings, his one Finals MVP. I thought he should have more, in my opinion. His league leading in threes and influenced the way the league changed. Everybody just easy to play with him around. So yeah, he's creeping up there. But you know, we're technically going by all time, if I was saying, and leading wise, since even influencing today's game, as we do see some point guards that are like him. I don't want to mention so much to compare to next to him because it's really tough, but there's only really person that I think can compare to him in the way they changed the game and influenced the game and the championships they won and the teams they led, the loyalty, the camaraderie, the international global media, like the fans they have. I have to go with Magic Johnson, Irvin Magic Johnson. Him with 5 rings, did have James Worthy and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, with this. Kareem was also another one, that I could have put in there, or Shaquille O'Neal. That I was just all Laker greats, that this every great that played, But Magic Johnson and his passing ability, his playmaking ability, his scoring from the mid range, scoring the threes, being clutch, leading those Laker teams, and those that when he went against Bird and Parrish and McHale and all in those teams, that was rough. Like they went through a tough era, and then they were saving basketball back in the day. So that's why I think I'd give slight edge to my Magic Johnson right now. Magic Johnson, he his 3 Finals MVPs. With the way he's all NBA teams. He was 6'9" guard back in that time. You didn't really see much of a 6'9" guard like that, but now we see a little bit more. Like big men, big point guards to be able to play like the way that the style would do, as we're seeing, like, his assisting, his scoring, and the way he made everybody better around him. Just the way, like I would say, Curry makes the gravity he contains. He carries with him like just 3-4 guys on him, and everyone else gets open, and then like it makes everybody's life easier. That's why with having Magic there also made players like Worthy. I would say Worthy is great. Kareem's life. And Byron Scott, Michael Cooper. Um, it was Bob McAdoo in those days. It was something else to see, and Pat Riley was coaching them back in the day. It was the Lakers and the Showtime Lakers that Magic ran. So that's currently my Mount Rushmore as of right now, but it can change. Some careers are not done yet. It may change down the line. I gotta feel like Magic and Curry, like right there, man. Like, and I love Stephen Curry. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the league, and so it's pretty crazy. So that's currently my Mount Rushmore. I just want to let you guys know, give my thoughts on that. So it's very difficult. It can go either way with people. I'd say people have their own opinions on it, but this was just my opinion. I would say there's just so many legends, so many stars. It just changes. Like, you can't go wrong with either one, I think, because if you were to give me like 3 to make, yes, I would put Curry in there. I'd probably put Shaq in there, or I'd probably put even Tim Duncan in his, the way he ran the Spurs, the culture over there with Popovich, him, Duncan, and Ginobili. So like, it can really fluctuate as it goes. So that is my Mount Rushmore. Hey, you guys appreciate it. And also, I wanted to mention a few more other sponsors on here, so I'm gonna be mentioning them. TrailerProz, expert trailer repair and custom metal fabrication, reliable, mobile, built to last. Please reach out, at trailerpros@gmail.com in the ticker below, and 916. Phone number is 916-812-2513. 916-812-2513. Please reach out to TrailerProz for your trailer repairs and custom metal fabrications. And also wanted to reach out to your taco guy, Livermore's local family-owned Tequiza Catering, authentic Mexican food and top-tier service. Please call 925-339-5857 to book. And their Instagram's there, your.taco.guy.livermore. Please reach out to Teresa. She's great. You can help you out with your taco needs. And then also another person I'd like to mention, and then for sponsorship would be Alfredo Melendez with Real Estate Advisor with KOLLAB Real Estate. Alfredo at cullabray.com. You can please reach him at 408-568-8288. And there's his license number below. So please reach out to him for your real estate needs in the Bay Area as well. And then also, I'd like to reach out for sale with AJ and Michelle Chand for real estate and loans. You can reach out to them at 916-549-2425 at ejnesh.chand@xbrealty.com. Sponsored by Crossover Sports Talk and Events LLC. And then also, I'd like to mention Geancarlo and Zeena Carmona, licensed financial professionals. They're helping individuals and families build generational wealth, eliminate debt, and protect their family through future global financial impact. So you can please reach out to them right here in the ticker, right here at Zeena. It's Zeena Yassin 063 @gmail.com. You can reach out to her at 510-461-2496. And Geancarlo with geancarlowf@gmail.com. You can reach out to him at 858-405-6743. Please reach out to them. They'll help out with any of your needs. So, yes, those were all my sponsorships. We're going to be having more sponsors and more guests on the shows. You guys know I'll be having more people come on. So we'll be talking some ball. I'll be incorporating more sports, as we go, possibly, with Formula One, MLB, and then soccer as well, international soccer and MLS. So I'll have more and more guests come on, and people will give their thoughts on what's going on in the sports world and what we're going to see upcoming, in the NBA offseason, and then also with the NFL season. There was some also news I wanted to mention before I hop off the pod. Was Kevin Durant. Shams Charania, he did mention the teams that Kevin Durant preferred over the weekend, or just before the weekend. It was the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Houston Rockets. So those were the teams that there was interest both ways, and then these teams were like, I think that can give up the most assets to gain them. The teams that Kevin Durant that they did report, that Shams Charania did report, was that he was interested, but they weren't interested in him, was the New York Knicks, which was the team, we were all thinking that he was going to go 6 years ago before he left Golden State. And there was another opportunity to get him back still here at 37 years old. He's a pure scorer, that he would go back to the Knicks and help them lift them over to get a championship, So, but apparently they're not interested at the moment right now, but who knows? Things can change. They can hop back and, just be like, hey, no, we'll give you this and this. We want Kevin Durant. And then there was also the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is Anthony Edwards' idol, was Kevin Durant growing up, and they've made it to the Western Conference Finals for the past 2 seasons, and they just can't get over that hump yet. They ran into teams like the Dallas Mavericks, which was Luka, Kyrie, and Lively and Gafford on those teams. And then he ran into such a buzzsaw with the Oklahoma City Thunder with Shea and J-Dubs and Chet, right? So it was tough, right? So they're trying to get that other scorer, that other superstar besides Anthony Edwards, which would possibly everyone think it was like Kevin Durant, which they have the assets to give up and the cash. So they are out apparently. So like he does not want to go there. That was some no desire there. So Shams Charania posted. So the teams to look on for is the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Houston Rockets, which all have assets, all have the cash, and they're willing to get the star there to help them teams uplift to try to get them in the playoffs and further beyond that. All right, so that's going to be the rest of the show for today, guys, in the pod. And I'm your host, Fazil Arshad, and founder for Crossover Sports Talk and Events. I'll be back on again soon, and I'll have more guests and sponsors. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night, and see you guys soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.